see that Section 2 was connected to Section 1. It's basically the same ideology about the start of World War II, but on the Japanese side and the campaigns and the platforms over in the regions of Southeast Asia. So really one of the big goals of talking about this with you is why did the Japanese attack Pearl Harbor, which we know got the United States involved into World War II? So like Hitler, Japan's leaders also wanted to create an empire. They started this movement by attacking China and gained lands there. They began to attack European colonies in Southeast Asia as well. In Southeast Asia, one of the big issues was that if Japan conquered European colonies, then they would then threaten the American colonies that were there, such as the Philippines and Guam. Therefore, the United States, to counter this, sent aid to China, which was supposed to help throttle the Japanese advances there. When Japan then took over French Indochina, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos in July of 1941, President Roosevelt then cut off oil shipments to Japan. We were their major supplier of oil. This angered Japan, and they had an oil shortage. And so this is one of the big reasons why, one of the first stepping stones to the attacks on Pearl Harbor. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto was Japan's greatest naval strategist. He called for an attack on the United States fleet in Hawaii because he thought it would be a threat to Japan's advancements. He stated that Hawaii and the United States battalions and troops and naval expenditures there pointed a dagger at their throats, meaning a dagger at the throats of Japan. That leads us to capital letter C, the day of infamy. On early morning of December 7th, 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, which was a United States naval base in Hawaii. U.S. military leaders actually knew from decoding messages that an attack was imminent, but they did not know where or when the attack would occur. In this attack, 19 ships were sunk or damaged, including 8 major battleships, and 2,300 Americans were killed. The United States quickly declared war on Japan and its allies, and this marked the United States' entry into World War II. The Allies strike back. The United States and one of our greatest allies, guys, of all time, Australia. This was our strike. Our first strike back wasn't much. It was called the Doolittle Raid. It's not because it didn't do much. It actually is named after the captain who led it in April of 1942, Lieutenant Colonel James H. Doolittle. He led the first action of the Americans against Japan. There were 16 B-25 bombers that attacked Tokyo and several other Japanese cities. The bombs did very little damage, but what it did is it signified that Japan was vulnerable to United States attack. Capital letter B, the Allies turned the tide of the war. And we're going to start with the Battle of the Coral Sea. This battle involved a new type of naval warfare. Basically, the ships were stationed far from each other, and they had aircraft carriers alongside of those ships that sent airplanes to attack the opponent's ships. So instead of firing torpedoes or gunfire from ship to ship, they put airplanes in the sky and attacked the opponent's ship that way. Although in this Battle of Coral Sea, the Allies lost more ships and men than the Japanese, it was a victory for the Allies because what happened is they stopped a southward advancement by the Japanese troops. Then we have the famous Battle of the Midway. Japan then targeted the Midway Island, which was about 1,500 miles west of Hawaii. The island was home to a key American airfield. The Japanese fleet was this time led by the Admiral Yamamoto himself, and they were defeated. American pilots actually destroyed 332 Japanese planes in this battle, all 4 of their aircraft carriers, and 1 support ship. This Allied victory significantly turned the tide of the war in the Pacific to the Allied side. Roman numeral 3. After winning the Battle of the Midway, the Allies went on the offensive. The leader of this was Douglas MacArthur, United States commander of the Allied forces in the Pacific. He came up with a plan called island hopping. It was a strategy developed by MacArthur in which he would take his troops to specific islands, getting closer and closer to mainland Japan without having to attack every single island. What he wanted to do is attack the less fortified islands first, winning those land bases, and then make strategic strikes on other islands. The Battle of Guadalcanal was a famous first target on the island hopping strategy, and it was an island located in today's Solomon Islands. It was a very fierce battle. It lasted about 6 months. The Japanese finally surrendered after Allied forces of Americans and Australians killed about 24,000 of their 36,000 troops there. Very short lesson, gentlemen. Section 3 is going to be a change-up. We may or may not be back for Section 4 and Section 5 on video lessons, but we will have some type of learning there as this is our last chapter. Please enjoy the last few learning sessions, gentlemen.